Were you spending money to cure diseases, or were you buying expensive watches? The charity thing has been mostly bogus. Brands individually work with interesting organizations across the board, and they actually do cool stuff. What I'm talking about is the whole, major auction house raising money for charity. Companies that are proud of what they're doing with their charitable donations tend to heavily publicize it. Ones that aren't doing anything are discreet about it. That's what we saw. I really don't know why anyone's surprised.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. David is speaking to us from the comfort of his own home. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Greg. Yes, boundless comfort.
Boundless comfort. Comfort everywhere you turn and everywhere you look, there is comfort.
Yes.
Ariel, however, is not. Ariel is in a hotel room. It's more or less 3 o'clock in the morning where he is, and he's recording a podcast surrounded by paper-thin walls, waiting for a knock on the door to ask why he's guffawing or laughing or shouting or protesting.
What kind of hotels do you think I stay in?
Oh, I see. Are you in a villa somewhere, are you? You know, a posh Airbnb in New York?
It's not a huge hotel room, but it's a decent place, and I haven't had any noise complaints yet.
Well, we'll try and sort that out shortly. We're going to talk about Only Watch. That might get the blood raised slightly and the temperature and the volume raised ever so slightly, but we'll come on to that in a moment. Last week we spoke about an event with Longines. Has that event been and gone, Ariel?
No, the event with Longines is on October 15th. The RSVP list is full. I had to turn down some people today. They were not very happy about that. But we had more interest than we could accommodate or anticipated. So we have another event a week later, but it'll be different, of course. I think it was really the Queen Mary, this vessel that used to go between England and New York. That's really the draw. No, I mean, it's going to be a really nice event, and Longines is bringing out some of their heritage pieces. A lot of people were, mentioning that there were Longines collectors and fans and things like that. So that's going to be exciting. Tomorrow here in New York City will be the launch of the book that I wrote with Casio. And I walked by their store, and they actually had some nice signage about it. There was something that made me laugh a lot, and I don't know, maybe you guys will understand the joke. So a lot of times in watch stores, they'll remove the high-end watches at night, for insurance purposes. Uh-huh. And there was a vitrine that had a label on it that you could see. It was the book, and they had my face on there, and it was really nice. And there was a little even price tag for the book, and there was a stand for the book, but the book was down. The book was gone. It was taken down for the night, worried that someone was going to steal this $65 book. And I thought it was hilarious. That's one of the things they decided to take down for the night. That was too much liability.
And they've had to lock them all in a safe somewhere.
Yeah.
You think I've just used them to prop up? They may just use them to block the door.
I mean,
just piled them high.
It's just hilarious that they took the time to remove that book, even though it was clearly there. So that's going to be nice. And then the event after the Longines event in Los Angeles on October 23rd is going to be with Zodiac at Feldmar Watch Company in collaboration with eBay. This is going to be a launch for my next collaboration watch with Zodiac. The first one was the Aquamarine Dream. This one is going to be called the Pineapple Dream, and it was actually designed at the same time, so we're going to launch this one. I'm excited by that. That's going to be a fun event, and it's going to be, the first 20 pieces will be sold on eBay's eBay Live platform, so I will be chatting with Zodiac's Michael Pearson. I haven't done that before. That will be interesting, so I'm looking forward to everyone's reaction to the watch. I've been wearing it. It's really fun. So that's what's going on.
So if you go along to the Casio event, are you going to be able to get a sneak peek of the Zodiac, or are you going Casio only for the Casio event? Is that the format? Is that the appropriate thing?
I have a feeling that the Casio event is not the best venue to start promoting the Zodiac watch. I'm just saying, it would confuse.
You've got two wrists.
I do. But I have a wonderful G-Shock that's going to be on my wrist, and I'm going to be there to talk about this book. For myself, I need to remember where I am. Often I look at my wrist and I'll be like, who am I meeting with? Oh yeah, I'm with Casio. So don't confuse me, Rick, please.
And what Casio have you chosen for the event? I assume you have more than one to choose from. So how does one choose the most appropriate Casio for a Casio event?
It was hard. I wanted to go with a simple model, one that I wore a lot over the last year, and that was the metal version of the GA 2100. I think it's the GMB 2100. Gray dial, steel on steel bracelet. Bluetooth. That's the one that has sort of the royal oak kind of style bezel and stuff like that. It's a really great timepiece. I've enjoyed it. I see them on people a lot out there. That doesn't bother me. So that's what I think I'm going to wear.
So, David, have you ever worn what turned out to be patently the wrong watch to a watch event?
Yes, a number of times. It's just, sometimes it happens. Usually I'm wearing sleeves, so I can just pull it over. Sometimes I do it on purpose in the sense that, some brands are just stuck up in a way that it's not like, I was going to say I don't do it on purpose, but in a way, sometimes I do. It's just
you do.
Yeah,
you do.
Yeah.
You do. We know you do.
Yeah.
We know you do it on purpose. What's the most egregious mistake you've ever made, or ever deliberately conspired to wear one watch to another watch brand?
Well, when I had my SBGC001 Spring Drive GMT chronograph from Seiko, I wore it to a number of SIHH, and the first time I had it, I would always very openly just put it on the tray in front of the brand, or especially if we had a technical guy or someone, and I technically made them look at it, just for them to appreciate how amazing that piece of engineering is in every way, from the hands through the crystal to everything. And it was also a really good way to assess how serious someone is from these brands about watches. And it was always the actual truly technical / product people who would pick it up and would say, wow, that's crazy how amazing that is. And it would just fly over the head of so many others. So it was 95% of people I had to actively show it. Not that I would, but sometimes I did that. And 5% would reach for it proactively and say, okay, let me check that out because that looks amazing.
Ariel, what's the best reaction you've got wearing one brand's watch to another brand's event? Like David suggests, there are times, especially I think of going to Geneva to these big shows, whereby you put down the watch you're wearing and actually it gets picked up and admired by the brand reps of other brands who know their watches. Whereas, as David says, if it's just someone who's a salesperson, they're just selling what's in front of them. You can put anything down and they'll be like, whatever.
Some people really go crazy about it. I've seen people freak out like, I'm not wearing the brand's watch. And, I'm not like that. I try to do it. If not, I try to wear something interesting. As David said, usually they're just as interested to see what we're wearing as they are to discuss what they have. Sometimes they're more interested. I sympathize with those people that feel you have to do it, but it's it's worse for me to show up wearing no watch than to have the wrong watch. Because if you're wearing the wrong watch, well, you're still in the watches. It's not like you're wearing their arch nemesis. It's how dare you? Do you know what that watch did to my mother? It's not really like that. I mean, I know that sometimes there's internal rivalries, but you should theoretically be able to wear pretty much any watch to any event and not be controversial.
Yeah, well, if you've got a story of getting a knockback at a brand boutique, a mono brand boutique, because you went in wearing something else, then do get in touch with the show. And if you've got anything else you want to get in touch with the show about, then email podcasts@ablogtowatch.com. I think it was 6 or 8 weeks ago that we started raising some eyebrows. I mean, it wasn't the first time we'd done it, but it was the first time we'd done it on the podcast about the world of Only Watch and exactly where had $100 million that had been raised since its inception been spent, because there seemed to be very little being said about what the money had actually done. And it turns out that we maybe were either started the zeitgeist or we rode the coattails just as it was taking off, and this has resulted in a number of people, particularly friend of the show, Jose Perez and some others, really pushing in, really leaning into just what has happened to the money that has been raised. And this has resulted in a rather interesting article on Watch Pro. Now, as we know, the organisation was created in 2005, raised money for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, all very good. It has raised $100 million, but the confession came this week in one of those kind of bury the lead type announcements that so far they've only managed to spend $50 million of it. And of that $50 million, a significant proportion of it seems to have been spent on a company which, on the other hand, a number of people involved in Only Watch own. Now, without putting too fine a point of it, that doesn't sound very good.
I don't care. I warned people about this years ago.
Okay, so Ariel's just going to sit there in his hotel room at 3 o'clock in the morning with his hands behind his head and his feet on the desk going, guys, I told you so.
Were you spending
David,
money to cure diseases, or were you buying expensive watches? The charity thing throughout the entire industry for a decade now has been mostly bogus. There are some really good work that happens. Brands individually work with interesting organizations across the board, and they actually do cool stuff. What I'm talking about is the whole, like, major auction house raising money for charity. Nobody wants to look at the numbers. Nobody wants to pull the veil away. It's ugliness that they'll see. And all of a sudden, someone just decided to realize, like, oh, this auction that says all the money goes to charity, who's never once released any press release or information or update after millions upon millions of dollars, and no one's suddenly a little bit suspicious, that means they don't really care, or they're doing something else with it. That's what that means. Companies that are proud of what they're doing with their charitable donations tend to heavily publicize it. Ones that aren't doing anything, are discreet about it. That's what we saw. I really don't know why anyone's surprised.
I think it's extraordinary that it has taken this long for it actually to start to become publicized. And they're saying that there's been some changes in charity rules in Monaco where it's based. I would have to say, base your charity in the UK or France or the USA, where there's a proper regime of accounting for charities and a proper regime of conflicts of interest and the recognition and discussion, and then we'll go, right, okay, you've cleaned shop. David, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with Ariel completely. I was wondering, this is a ticking time bomb, and even like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I was asking myself, like, how, when those titanium Pateks were bringing, 8-figure prices, whatever, I was thinking to myself, how long can this go on before something just pops? You can't stretch this any further, basically, in a way, because it's just so much money. You could build like a freaking hospital somewhere, from it. So it's like, I understand, like, developing a cure is expensive and whatever, but as Ariel is saying, if in fact all that money is going to charity, everyone would be understanding that it's in their best interest to communicate loudly and clearly about that. And we've not seen that at all, probably ever, from Only Watch.
I think it's fair to say that in the UK, if you set up a company and you owned, or you and your friends owned 51% of it, and then you set up a charity and raised hundreds of millions of dollars and spent half of it on the other 49% of the company, there would be some serious questions being asked about corporate governance and how a brand new company is effectively having its share price. Because hopefully it's a success. Hopefully they do find a cure and all the rest of it. I'm not saying, like, don't do the research. I'm just saying you're using a charity to effectively bolster the balance sheet and do research that's going to make the other half of the company incredibly valuable, which you then own personally. And that's really not on. So I don't think there's been that much pressure yet on the watch brands that are involved. I've not seen any commentary, but a lot of these watch brands have major corporate governance structures.
I'll mention something
to stop this kind of thing happening.
It's possible that the brands themselves have been led to believe this money was spent on these things just as much as anyone else. I've spoken to a couple of people who contribute watches, and they actually very readily talk about the good work, the importance of the the medical charity. They don't go into so much detail about what they did, but they all seem to be relatively convinced that it's important, a big deal. I don't know what the organization does to show, to the brands that contribute stuff. There might be some special presentation that they see that we haven't said. But they were under the belief, at least the ones that I spoke to, that this was a legitimate thing. Maybe they were just saying that to explain a way around all the big dollars associated with it. I don't know. But again, I never looked at Only Watch thinking that there was anything actually good happening for medical research or charity. This again goes to the larger policy of why I don't really like to editorialize about auctions on aBlogtoWatch. It's every single time it's like, oh, the money didn't go to that. Oh, the watch wasn't what it said it was. Oh, this person lied about this. This is just a hotbed of potential for fraud and misleading and things like that. And that's why I stay away from it. I look at it as entertainment, but none of this surprises me because all of this stuff is able to be done. This area of the industry attracts the people that want to do this type of thing. This is David, back me up here. This is exactly what the people want. They want to use these as mechanisms to artfully move money around.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I applaud their adventurous nature. I mean, it would be much easier to just set it up as a religion or something like that. And maybe that's the next step. Because then you can you're tax-free all the same way and you can just get away with it. Maybe we will see in between 4 to 5 years a new religion, with... that will be to Kronos or whoever else. We'll choose a god that is not very hostile to anybody really, and then we'll see how that works out. Accepting donations already.
Just like a Ghostbusters thing. If somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah, exactly. But to Ariel's point, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this really is a hotbed, and it's like we've made this policy. I don't know, like a decade or more ago that we don't really cover auctions, and it's extremely rare that we reference anything. And again, it's like the more you look at these, the more. The higher the chances that you will find some sort of either fraud or something like that. It's all these records, like some people, let's just put it this way, some people and this happens frequently online, thankfully not as frequently these days as it used to be a couple of years ago, but what people would do is look at like XYZ brand and say, oh, look, someone paid $1 million for a Tudor or 17 for a Patek. You look how valuable that brand is and how desirable that brand is. But it's mostly bogus. I mean, it's either the brand buying its own stuff or it's somebody who will not pay that amount in the real world. It's like, oh, it's an anonymous buyer buying from an anonymous seller. It's like, so what? It's basically you're moving money from one pocket to another for all kinds of reasons. You can do that, and there are all kinds of reasons why you would want to do that if you had that sort of money. So to look at auctions as a means of validating the values of a brand or the interest in a brand is basically nonsense. If you want to assess the desirability of a brand, you go to eBay or Chrono24 and you look at the resale values of a watch you can actually buy and that people actually care about and that is actually out there, as opposed to just a unique piece that can be sold or quote unquote sold for any sort of made up amounts of money.
Well, there are 76 unique watches and brands taking part this year, so it'll be interesting to see if at least one of them has something to say on the record that's maybe, casting some comment on what has been spoken about and released so far. But let's talk about some actual watches. Jean-Claude Biver, or JCB, a new release Ariel, the Biver La Danse du Temps Pièce Unique watch with Mexico in mind. Again, with the names of watches, blimey. First of all, so this is based on the release that Jean-Claude and his son made at this year's, not SIHH, what do we call it nowadays?
Watches and Wonders.
Watches and Wonders, at this year's Watches and Wonders. First of all, how do we think that's gone down now that we're kind of 6-7 months past its release.
You're talking about the Biver Carillon Tourbillon?
Yeah, the original release that they'd spent this time doing, which this watch is based on.
Yeah, the Carillon Tourbillon, yeah.
How do you think it's gone down in terms of reception now that we're a few months beyond its initial release? Like, everybody was there and was like, oh, this is great. But has it really...
I mean, look...
done what we think it was supposed to do?
I'm not sure it was supposed to do. I mean, there were sales made. There's a very small number of these watches that were supposed to be made per year anyways. The brand just got started. There's a small trickle of them that are, being produced. They made a piece unique for Only Watch. There's this piece unique for the SIAR show in Mexico City, where it's sort of a trade show, but it really is there to invite VIP customers that purchase watches at this level. It's got some original artwork on the form of some 2 engraved skeletons dancing. It's supposed to, say it's sort of inspired by Day of the Dead and Diego Rivera. I don't see too much of that, but skeletons wearing hats dancing in Mexico. Okay, it's got to have something to do with Day of the Dead. And it's a nice composition. I didn't think it was too original. I spoke to Jean-Claude a while ago about his brand, and I seem to feel that he was going to use the exclusive nature of the Biver brand to make like the weird art that he liked, because he's an art lover. And I saw this, and I wrote about this in the news piece, but I felt like it was very expected and commercial. Like he's just like, let's just make something that will sell. And that's fine, but again, I had a different level of expectation. Maybe that stuff is coming where it's a lot more, strange and artistic and esoteric, but I was really hoping to see more of the sort of person that Biver might be. And I see a little bit of that. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, was it, as nice as this is, was it a bit cliche to do another watch related to Day of the Dead for Mexico? I mean, there's so many themes. I know the Day of the Dead is a timely thing, but I wonder, is that it? Is that, one of the only themes that they can think about? It seems like it's done so often. And I wonder if buyers there are saying, hey, is this the only thing you can think about with our country and culture?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, which is, this would be like if brands produced watches for Scotland and every single one of them was like tartan
and rain
style or had Nessie on it or something like this. Like,
or was made of haggis.
Made of haggis. Yeah, I mean, if you're Mexican and listening to this, are you going, no? I mean, I don't know. I've never been to Mexico. I understand a little bit of the Day of the Dead story, mostly as reflected through watch culture. Like, what I know about Day of the Dead, I know from watches. So it's probably not really that deep a dive into what it all means culturally. But if you're listening to this and you're Mexican, are you like really fed up and wish people would move on? And what else would show that a watch has a Mexican theme? I mean, Ariel, you at least live slightly closer to Mexico than I do. If you were going to do something else that was Mexican, what would it be?
I mean, I'm not Mexican. I'd be the worst person to ask. I would just explore whatever is there in contemporary culture. I mean, he likes modern art a lot. There's this obviously very vibrant culture. I don't know. Maybe they did that and this is what they decided was best. I just felt for an absolute unique watch, I wanted to see something a little bit more provocative. I mean, the amount of watches we see, not even related to Day of the Dead, that have skulls and skeletons on it, like, it's kind of silly at this point. I'm like, I mean, who's just like, I can't wait for my next skull watch. It doesn't matter what it costs. If it has a skull in it, I have to buy it. Like, I don't know if this person exists. I guess
it totally
that
exists.
theme. Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. The theme is a little strange to me. And again, if the point of the Biver brand was to be interesting and provocative, I'm not sure that we've seen too much of that yet.
David, what do you actually think of not just this watch or this iteration of it, but of the watch, the Carillon Tourbillon, that it's based on?
It's interesting because if you look at all the previous Biver creations and collaborations and marketing decisions and whatever else from from the early Bonds through James Bond's Seamaster through, all the way to the Big Bang and all the rest of them. They were all they all had their own unique characteristic in a way. It's like everyone was at the time queuing for just another like tiny little slice of a cake. And Biver, if you look at what he did at Bonbon and Omega and Hublot, he would just put another cake on the table. It's like none of those things were like just another slice of an existing thing. They were always something that was new, like an all mechanical Blancpain when everyone was making quartz, or a gold watch on a rubber strap, and like Patek and all the rest would say like we would never do that, and of course they all do that today. And by contrast, the Corian Tourbillon is just a slice of an existing cake. It's not something terribly new in a sense. It's an horlogerie piece, very high end, of course, very complicated, beautifully made, but it looks generic. I mean, it's in a way, and I don't mean this in a bad way or anything like that, but it's like two hands of the same design, a very nice bracelet, a very nice case. It's a very beautifully made watch for $500,000 that says Biver on it, but I'm not sure what about it is Biver. And again, another thing that Biver, was exemplary in is explaining what a watch or a brand is about in a sentence at most, in basic concepts. And I couldn't quite grasp what this is about. I get that part, that it is something that his son will be able to work on, and it's more of his project, and it's about setting the foundations of a new brand that he can later carry on. But still, for me, as a start, at least they got rolling. But but I don't really see it as something that is super over the top or super Biver in the way that all his previous creations were.
Ariel, you have reviewed a watch called the Awake Alan Silberstein 100th anniversary of the EEIF watch. Now, EEIF, if I am correct, is like a Jewish scouting organization. Is it a youth organization? Do you know much about it yourself before we deal with the watch?
I tried to do some research. I'm not a scout, nor am I French. So I don't have immediate familiarity with it. I seem to recall a long time ago LEN Spirit making a different watch for this organization, and then I realized that he himself is not only involved in this organization but has been for a long time. And I was just sort of working with Awake to even learn about this. Like, there was no press release about it or anything like that. It was a very quiet release. Alan was working with this other French company, which is Awake, to do this as a collaboration. And this was, a very inexpensive, just over €200 timepiece. It has the solar-powered movement. And, there's all this, huff about, LEN Silberstein's, tourbillons and other expensive watches. And here's one which is, just a couple $100 that you could really enjoy. So, yes, there is this sort of connection to this organization that most people don't know about, and there's little symbols on it. Do you have to know anything about this? No. The watch dial is sort of inspired by a compass, which is interesting, and the case is sort of this speckled blue, and it's made out of some partially recycled plastic using, ocean nets or something like that. So there's a lot of interesting messages here. I've just enjoyed this a lot. It's a simple timepiece. There's a lot of bang for your buck, even at that price point. Like I said, it has a nice solar-powered movement, sapphire crystal, bespoke everything. Strap, case, crown, buckle, the whole 9 yards. And then again, it's a a limited production, not limited edition. I don't know how many they're going to make, but they're not too many. Collaboration watch with a very now quite famous watchmaker. So I thought this was a really cool discovery. There's probably still a few out there. Maybe they're sold out by now, but these are very cool.
Yeah, €220, as you say. This is some significant bang for your buck in terms of design and uniqueness, and it just looks really cool. David, I mean, I know nothing about the history of the watch or the culture or anything, but it's just a cool watch. So why wouldn't you?
I do like a cool watch very much, and sometimes that's all we need. There's no need to overthink all the time. Sometimes it's just, and these make for great impulse purchases anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's half the price of the Swifty Fathoms. Is it an anodized buckle and pusher?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, not pusher, but crown.
Crown, rather. Yeah, it's really cool. The red reminds me of a hand heart, where they have these red pushers for the chronographs. Looks really cool.
It's just nice
check that out.
once in a while to wear a watch that's this low price point. Look, when I started in this hobby, it was still in the era where you could get really mass-produced watches that were nice quality, and the reason that they were not expensive is because they were mass-produced. These days, you have to pay more because things aren't as produced in as much volume, and we tend to forget that a lot of the stuff that costs $1,000 today, we could have bought for like $200 a while ago with more production. So once in a while, there's people that have great connections to suppliers and are able to create a product that ends up having a low retail price. But I think in general, this is sort of a reminder that we pay sometimes quite dearly to enjoy this wristwatch collecting hobby.
Well, David, you appear to be taking on the mantle of the Blingmeister. We had last week the Bulgari with the 2 ancient Roman coins on it. This week, you have a review of the Shard Imperial jumping hour watch with Urushi dial and diamonds. So if it's got some diamonds on it, it's yours to review. What did you make of this? This, again, a bit like last week, this just looks like a cool watch. Who cares that it's maybe not really designed for a man to wear?
Are you kidding me? It's absolutely a man's watch. It's it's the
most manly watch you've ever seen.
Well, I mean, it's the whole point of the article on this hands-on article that I wrote was to explain that this is nothing of a women's watch at all. But I agree that it takes a hands-on experience to get to that conclusion. I mean, it's a large watch in the sense that it's 39-40 millimeters large. It's lug to lug, it's even larger or longer, I should say, because it has these long swiveling lugs, of course, all diamond set, and it's a dark watch. It's sure you look at it and you're like diamonds and gold and whatever, but it's like flowers. But once you look at it, it's a very gloomy, dark watch. It's like a Hitchcock picture, basically, in a way. And it's funny because, again, the first impression is just that it has diamonds sprouting out of the bezel, basically. But at the same time, the craftsmanship is unreal. It's really top, which is what you would expect from a company that is half watchmaker and half jewelry maker, which is Chopard. But still, it's outstanding in the way that this is done. And once you look at the picture on the dial, which is a black Urushi dial with some birds on it and some flowers and some twigs and stuff, it's a gloomy picture. I mean, if you look at the birds, they don't look like pretty colorful birds. They're just in gold or golden color, and all the flowers and everything. It's just it paints a dark and gloomy picture. And basically, my point was that this looks a lot like the beautiful furniture that you would find in a traditional Japanese home or an office or something like that. Or again, to jump into another continent, I would totally imagine like a warlord or something like that, or an oligarch from like 200 years ago in France or somewhere, where something exactly like this, when you have an actual army at your disposal. And to put this watch on and to realize that it paints a dark and gloomy, borderline depressing picture, but it's so beautifully made, it's right at the top when you have like direct access to an army. And it's not something you get from the pictures or just from looking at the diamonds, but it is a proper, 18th century oligarch watch. Perfect.
So some renaming, maybe the Shard Imperial Dark and Gloomy is really what they need to change the marketing campaign to make it more obviously attractive to the male wrist.
I think David's saying it has sort of like a East Asian Gothic vibe.
Mm-hmm. East Asian Gothic. That too. Yeah, we're getting really specific.
If there was such a thing ever. Yeah.
If there was goth in Japan, it would be this.
Yes.
Obviously, you wore this presumably. Was this from Geneva Watch Days?
Yeah, well, Chopard was not officially there, but I popped by their boutique on Rue de Ron, And they had this in there, and I was like, wow, this is great. It's 180,000 euros or something like that, and only 8 will ever be made.
See, I wonder whether what we really need is we need not just a hands-on, but a hands-on and a going out. You need to try one of these watches actually out and about, because you might feel masculine enough when you're in there and you're in the boutique and everyone's trying to persuade you that it's a man's watch. But I wonder whether if you were to go out to the local thoroughfares of Geneva or, maybe Glasgow and had this watch on, whether you'd feel quite as masculine trotting up to, I don't know, TGI Fridays or going out to the cinema wearing this. I mean, you might be afraid for your life, but on the one hand, wearing all these diamonds, but I'm curious as to whether the male vibes would continue if you were actually outside with this watch.
If I had this sort of money,
I
would just have a commando go anywhere with me, like a five strong commando, just all black, whatever, and I would be like, this is my representation of an army that I have back home. And I forget to mention it. It's also Geneva hallmark and solid gold plates in the movement as well. And of course, the movement is also engraved and painted and whatever. So as a watch, as ridiculous as it sounds, you do get a lot of freaking watchmaking for your money. But does that make you feel any more manly? I'm not sure. You raise a very fair point, Rick. I'm not sure how I would feel wearing this about.
Don't forget the magic spell that makes birds within a few hundred feet cry when you're wearing it around them.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, we need a road test. We need some brand to loan us a watch which is full of diamonds, which they say is also manly, and we want to go around town and try them
For
out.
the test, we're not really sure we understand. Rick seems to understand this test. David and I are like, what are we trying to evaluate here?
I'm just running away with a diamond watch. That's all I'm wondering. Oh yes, it got stolen. Yep. I was mugged in the streets of Glasgow wearing my $100,000 fully diamond watch, and I got it back, but all the diamonds are gone.
So this is where we write the story where it's Rick steals, the Chopard family gems. Like I don't know what else to say it. He dreams of where are you gonna go take those dreams and live? You're gonna live like a king somewhere? Where's it gonna be?
Oh no, I'd go and live at a caravan in the woods somewhere.
Because here's the thing, you can't
isolation.
But that's the point. You have to show this stuff off, so you could never do it, because to truly wear it and enjoy it, you have to be seen with it. You can't just don it in private in your cabin in the woods where you're hiding from the Chopard family or the Choufellas.
A dandy about
the Choufellas who will come after you with their commandos.
Yes. Listen, I don't doubt that they have them. Personally, I don't.
Well, how else are they going to get back these watches when people like you walk off with them? You think it's the first time it's happened? Come on. The power of desire, Rick. The power of luxury desire.
They've already thought about it. They've already got me sussed. This was a watch I particularly enjoyed at, I keep forgetting what it was called, at Watches and Wonders. And this was the two-tone Tag Heuer Aqua Racer Professional 200. I really like these. I've never been a particular big fan of the Aqua Racer, but I got to try these on, and they're actually gorgeous. And I thought the Tag were all about the chronograph and the glass box and all the rest of it, but this was my favorite watch or range of watch releases from Tag this year. Gents, your own thoughts?
Well, the Aqua Racer is a collection that I've been familiar with for a long time, and most of that history, it has not exactly been the type of timepiece that enthusiasts go crazy over. It was, I think in its most successful form, it was sort of like a sporty women's watch with some of them with diamonds on it. So when I think like hot selling Aqua Racer,
David, come on, get in there. Come on, say how manly it is.
These were specifically. No, these were smaller women's watches. They're specifically, So I was like, it did really well. Then Tag Heuer was like, oh my God, we have a diving watch too, and they tried to make it better, but like. It needed, I think, a little bit of oomph. Now, when you put it on, I think what they got back to is it really feels like a serious dive watch. But they sort of still sort of make it fashiony, and that's what I like about it. They kind of give it a little bit of a, they have the geometry right now of the case design, and some of the colors. You got the two-tone here. I wish they were less expensive. I think that they would be, I think they would be more competitive, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, dive watches are still tool watches, and when we like tools, we value them often not just by their reputation, but also in how they perform against one another. And there's nothing here the Aqua Racer does that some other watch doesn't do better for cheaper. So it's not that it doesn't look good, but they're not really selling the tool element of it. It doesn't have some fancy bracelet or something like that. I mean, it's fine, it's nice, but it kind of feels like Tag Heuer's trying to compete in an area that Breitling was in sort of a while ago before their prices went up, where there was just like hey, here's a handsome luxury dive watch, and that's not a bad thing. It's interesting. It's an interesting direction. It's a mainstream model. Again, I think it's just hard because at this price point, there's a huge number of options. So I think these are probably some of the better Aqua Racers that we've seen in recent years, and I definitely agree with you there. But I think that Tag Heuer is a brand that can do things really, really well when they want to. This is not the star of their catalog right now.
It is quite a leap from the non-gold. They're not close to double the price just for some precious metal over the standard steel. It is quite a leap. David, are you an Aqua Racer fan?
I quite like these, it has to be said. I'm not sure if it's like $5,000 nice, but it's quite nice. I wonder how much the Tissot PRX with the gold bezel costs. I think it's considerably less, actually. It should be around, I don't know, 2,000, something like that. So
I'll find out. I'll go find out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be thereabouts with the fluted bezel and the larger one, and the fluted bezel on those is unreal in terms of quality and stuff. And for what Tag Heuer is giving you for $5,000, I mean, this bezel has nothing on that.
It's about 2,900 for the steel version on the bracelet. And this steel version with a gold bezel and gold crown on a strap is just over 5,000.
Really, for the PRX, that expensive?
I'm talking about the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer.
No. What I was saying is the PRX from Tissot with a solid gold bezel that is beautifully made. Yeah, that is what I was wondering about, price wise, because that's going to be significantly less. And you still get a solid gold bezel. So, but still, I like the proportions. I quite like the way that this is done. But some brands, all brands, like to charge an arm and a leg for gold. But some even go beyond that. Breitling charges a ridiculous premium for a tiny little like drizzle of gold, and maybe that's what Tag Heuer is doing here as well. But I quite like this. I'm just not sure it's $5,000 nice.
So the Tissot PRX 80 steel and gold, 18 karat gold bezel is £1,800. So say $2,100 probably. So it's less than half the price of the Tag with a gold bezel. Now, I would think the Sellita is how much more would you well, maybe not. I mean, the Sellita movement that's in these PRX has 8 hours power reserve, doesn't it? So would you consider the Sellita to be a better movement than a Powermatic?
Oh, well, that's a tough question. Neither of them are a real treat to look at, but once you factor in the double price difference, then I would say sure. And the PRX is 100 meter water resistant. The Aqua Racer is 200. Whatever. It's as long as the
buy both.
Yeah, why not? Or just buy 2 PRX. If it breaks, you still have another one.
I mean, these watches aren't competitors. One's a dive watch and one's not.
Yeah, whoever is going to dive with an Aqua Racer, go ahead and buy the 2-tone gold Aqua Racer and dive with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like the Solar Graph version of the Aqua Racer the most. They came out with some cheaper versions of it now, too.
Good.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that my favorite one of all of these at the moment is still the Solar Graph. I think that just does everything you need it to do. It's a fire and forget $2,000 dive watch. Every day, a beater watch. That's a phrase I haven't heard used for a wee while in the world of watch podcasts.
I say it all the time.
But a beater watch. My only query on the Aqua racers is I do feel that they wear small, that the 40mm wears like it's smaller. They're very neat watches.
Sir, there is a
But
43 millimeter wide version just for you.
Is there?
Oh yeah.
Is there?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Of what? Of the Solargraph?
No.
Or just of the main? of the main one. I mean the Solargraph.
No.
Of the main 200 Aqua racer.
No,
Well,
the thousands.
then
The thousands.
Then I shall go. All right, okay, yeah. Of the professional.
Well, there's the 300 and the 1,000. So
Yeah.
there's that's another thing. It's like before they have like a hit model, they're starting to go crazier. So 300. I'm sorry, the 300 is a 43 millimeter. The 1,000 could be more. The 1,000's 45. Look at you. You have everything. 40, 43, 45. What do you?
They don't look the same though.
What do you complain? That's even cooler. They don't look the same. You're like, I have no idea which one to get. Like they're all good and bad.
If I want something that's got a daft crown protector on it, I'll keep wearing the Panerai that I've already got.
You're talking about the 1,000? Yeah, that seems highly
1,000.
unnecessary.
Cool. Well, there we have it for the tag and all things Aqua Racer. I don't know if I can be bothered. Let me think about this for a minute. Yes, I can. I can be bothered. Let's play Guess the Price of the Seiko.
Yay!
Because Seiko have 2 watches out this week that are basically called the same thing.
Oh, no.
The confusion.
I mean, they look slightly different. I mean, why release these at the same time? I don't understand.
Do you know
it.
this game is getting popular now with the watch industry? They're starting to laugh about it.
I actually had somebody listen to the podcast who doesn't normally listen and came. It was a really old episode. It was like 20 episodes ago, and came and said, "Oh, it was a good episode. I really enjoyed Guess the Price of the Seiko. Do you do that every week?" I say, "Well, we try not to, but if Seiko keep releasing watches every week, we just find we have to." So Seiko Prospect Landmaster 30th anniversary. Gentlemen, I think you should get the 2 articles on the side by side if you can on your screens. So on the left we have the Seiko Prospect Landmaster 30th anniversary SLA 071 watch.
Hold on.
And on the right we have the Seiko Prospect Land Mechanical. So it's not a master at it, it's just a mechanical at it, but it's a GMT SPB 411 limited edition. So we have a limited edition on the right that's a GMT, and a 30th anniversary on the left that's got a fancy compass bezel.
So are we ready to start having like AI image generation just hybridize these and just be like, hey, what happens if you combine these two?
Yes.
Oh, I think I have found exactly what I'm going to do as soon as we stop this call. I'm going to type in some random Seiko specifications to an AI image generator and ask it to design me a watch. And then I'll ask the AI to price it.
Actually, that'd be the funniest thing.
And what Seiko make it a month later? Yeah.
We complain there's too many Seiko watches, so we take 2 that we just like, both of these don't need to exist. Let's just make a blend of the 2.
That's actually true. Like, there's no need for both of these to exist at all.
Which is veto. Like, you're not allowed to come out with 2 watches like this in essentially the same week, Seiko. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it easy for you. We're just gonna combine them both and do whatever the computer says.
We should dedicate like 2 months just going through and just reducing the redundancy in Seiko's lineup. Just you and I go to a flagship boutique where they have literally everything and just ban half of them. But I think we should start by guessing which one is the master, because there's nothing that would separate these from a master perspective. I mean, one is a GMT, but the other has a compass bezel. So I guess that makes it a master. I'm not sure. But the other one has a fancy bracelet, and this one has a simple one. But that has a crappy case, and the simple bracelet has a nicer case. So which one is it?
So my first question to you is, my first question is, you have the LAN Master on the left, and the LAN Mechanical GMT limited edition on the right. which one's more expensive?
I feel like the GMT is going to be more expensive.
So we have a vote for the right GMT more expensive.
Only reason why the non-GMT is more expensive, and this is something that you've got to do if you try to assess the price of a Seiko. I mean, we're getting the hang of this. Is zoom in on the picture and look at the case and the way that the case is made. And this is not your typical stamped nonsense, but it actually has like some sharp edges and a polished like just bevel running across the profile of the case, some proper brushing. I'm almost certain that the master is going to be more expensive just because of the case.
See, I'm just looking at the lead picture that has the mountains behind it. The irony is both of them have like a completely different set of mountains behind it.
And the one on the right, the mechanical, those mountains don't look very Japanese.
Guess the price of the mountain. Which is a more expensive mountain?
Guess location. Okay, so David is going left for the
Landmaster has clearly the more expensive dial. It's shinier. It's blue.
Shinier dial.
You know, we know that blue costs more than gray, right?
Obviously, it's more expensive if it's shiny.
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is that David wins that round because it is the Landmaster. But now I'm going to ask you another question to settle it. In a by factor, how much more expensive is the Landmaster than the Land Mechanical?
What's the movement?
So is it?
See, I just went to the logic that the GMT, because that's extra hand, that clearly adds a few $100, you know?
That would have been my logic, to be fair. So the Landmaster, I'm even confused myself, is an 8L35.
Ooh, that's a high number.
Yes.
It's a big number. And in light of last week, Ariel, it is 4 hertz. So a whole extra hertz.
Okay, that's expensive.
And we know how much extra hertzes cost. Whereas the one on the right, the Land Mechanical, is a 6R54, only 3 hertz. Boom.
Ooh, the 3. I should have asked that beforehand. I didn't even know they made a 3 hertz GMT.
Well, they do now. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know that
turntables.
I would say, you know what? Then in that case, I'm going to say that the Landmaster is at least double. At least double.
Yeah. David, is it at least double?
No.
Higher or lower than at least double?
I think like 30. Well, that's quite a big difference in movement. Maybe like 30%.
Okay, so I mean, if I tell you that the Land Mechanical is...
Don't tell us the price. We should guess.
I'll tell you the price. Oh, well, guess the price then. Guess the price.
900.
We're really stretching this out this week. How much?
900 for the GMT.
900
the non-master.
For the GMT. Ariel for the GMT, how much?
I'd say a bit more, a little bit more.
Go on, give us a number.
I don't know. 1,100, 1,200.
Okay, it's $1,500.
Okay.
And it's 3 hertz. And we know that it's $1,000 a hertz.
Okay.
So clearly the Seiko Prospects Landmaster 35 is actually $2,600. So it turns out the price of a hertz is actually $1,100. But it's basically twice the price.
I was kind of close there with the twice.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. The very next, I actually do quite like this Land Mechanical. Maybe we shouldn't quite be ripping into Seiko quite as often as we do, because we'll not get invited to stuff. But I actually really like this. I like this Landmaster. Do you have any experience of these watches? These are kind of re-releases and pastiches of old things. Do you have anything to say about what they're based on?
The Landmaster was always the sports watch that was hard for Seiko to move. Dive watches were easier. Pilot watches they could do. The land-based ones, as nice as they were, it was like, well, you'll get the good discount. That's what it was for a really long time. I like the idea of the wearer. I just don't know who that person is. I don't know that person is like, I am such a friggin' explorer. I'm not going to wear the GMT or the brand that I associate with climbing. I'm going to wear the watch that says it's about it, even though it really doesn't actually help me on my climbs in any significant way. Like, that's a niche wear right there, right?
Good stuff. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it very much is.
It's nice
not gonna help
looking.
you get
It's
off
nice
mountain.
looking, but it's like I feel like when you want to go make this elegant, you want to pry off that compass bezel, like put something a little bit more sleek on there.
For climbing, I would want the slimmest and lightest watch possible, not a freaking banger with that just wobbles and shakes around. And just gets just caught on everything. So yeah, it's not. It's an aspirational. It's a desk climber watch. If there's desk climbing, then there's desk climbing too.
Yes, climbing. Let's very quickly deal with a couple other watches that we've reviewed and that were released this week in Hitmas maybe. So first up, Longines Spirit Flyback Titanium watch. For me, this line is a big hit, and this is just another hit in this line. Ariel, Hitmas maybe?
These are really nice. I agree. I think this is where Longines is shining right now in terms of price point and value. Obviously, we have our Longines event coming up soon. This watch, I first saw this when it was like the Zulu time. It was the GMT, and they finally put in like a proper GMT that could compete with the Rolex GMT Master. Here you have lightweight titanium case. I believe it's a ceramic bezel. In-house made flyback movement. It's basically some of the best stuff from ETA. This is, we looked at the new Breguet Type 20 watches coming out. I think if you want to go in that direction, this is what to get.
Price is creeping up a bit. These are close to $5,000, in and around $5,000. David, Hitmas maybe?
It's a hit in a way because it's 5,200 on a titanium bracelet. So if you compare this to that Aqua Racer on a wonky little strap, this is a different league. Beautifully made case and bezel and dial, nice proportions as well. I just wish that Longines would just develop a new movement, because these 7750 based movements, this is like 17 millimeters thick. That's huge. I really wish that, it's great that it's in titanium. Hopefully it's not going to be that uncomfortable, but still, it's long overdue that someone at Swatch Group said, hey guys, let's just act like we're in the 2020s now and develop a new automatic movement. They've been milking this movement for like half a century now. Just invest a couple million here and there and make a new movement that is a self-winding chronograph for the next 50 years, please.
But this is the new one that came out. This
I don't care. It's too thick.
You're right. You're right that the watch is very thick, and we'll have to put it on to see exactly how it feels like. But I just want to clarify that this is supposed to be the new generation. It has the higher power reserve and accuracy and stuff like that. So it's huge, but it's sort of like a tank. It's a good performer.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Girard Perregaux, 38 millimeter Laureato with the copper dial. I'm going to say it's a hit, despite the fact that it's 38 millimeters, but only because I know that bigger ones of this Laureato do exist. And if you were going to spend 1,400 quid, if 1,400 quid was your budget, I would be spending on any Laureato I could get my hands on for that price, because these are just stunning. Gentlemen, David, do you agree? This is a stunning watch. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe?
It's a nice watch. Yeah, it's a few details, but maybe it's just me that bugs me about these integrated bracelet watches.
Are you going to ruin this for me? Are you about to ruin this for me?
Yeah, it's just the shoulders on those lugs. It's not the Laureato, it's the Ariel. Look, it's all of these watches, the Nautilus, all of them. Maybe it's just a personal preference thing. So I will give it to GP here. Yeah, this is a hit. Yeah.
Ariel?
For me, it's really all about value, because this is the price point which I really thought that, the Royal Oaks and Nautiluses of the world needed to be at. And then they went up to 20,000 and then basically 30,000, 40,000, basically for the same watch. And this is something that is around the price that I think it should be. I like the design. I agree that the 38 is a bit small for my wrist, but lucky for us, there's other sizes that Girard Perregaux makes. Look, if you had to have a fight, I still probably the Royal Oak would win overall, but it's much harder to get and very, very expensive. I think this is more handsome than the Nautilus, in my opinion. Again, you don't need to have a whole collection full of the Laureatos, but it's definitely one to aspire to have, and at retail price, you're not being fleeced.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally this week, the Citizen ProMaster Tough Super Titanium watch. I mean, these things are just a hit all day long. They're just awesome watches. Completely about as bulletproof as you're going to get in a watch, and, at a price that's entirely respectable at less than $600. Gents, have you still owned, used, worn, bashed around one of these watches?
Yeah, I mean, this is from Ripley on the team, who, really wanted to review this one. I've had some of these in the past. I don't know too much about the specifics on sort of how durable it is, but this is when we think about like a tool watch that you don't have to think about and you could wear around. It's like a beater watch. Like, this is basically what they're talking about. It's got it's lightweight. It's designed to be like chunky, so you can beat it up. It's light powered. It's got, the eco drive, so you don't have to put a battery in it. It's about as legible as an analog watch can be. I think the thing that it does poorly also works in its favor. Like, it's not the prettiest thing, but it's not trying to be. So it's kind of like friendly in the way that like a shovel is.
Let's do something else. Not a shovel.
You could have thought of anything there, and you chose a shovel.
Well, it's just, that's what came to mind. And so, like you buy this for a little bit. It's like old reliable. You can throw it in the back, and you can be mean to it. It's still going to be there when you have nothing else to tell you the time.
Good stuff. So a hit from Ariel.
Yes.
David.
A hit. How can this not be a hit? I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, I think we should leave it on that. We'll let Ariel get to his bed in preparation for his big day in New York tomorrow. But what are you actually doing tomorrow in New York, Ariel?
People ask me if I'm signing books, so I guess I'm signing books.
And is that going to allow anybody to copy your signature and use it for any nefarious means? Can we be bidding?
Not sure why you went there. I guess now I'll have to have a horribly
second signature,
distorted version of my signature. I'll just have a horrible blob of Sharpie pen. Okay.
Yeah, you just make it as illegible as possible. This is when you get to practice. You get to practice your signature. You make each one.
You're gonna
make
the fans just really love this book, aren't you?
Each signature.
Ariel Adams ruined my book with his signature.
There used to be a thing about Terry Pratchett that the books he didn't sign were more valuable because he felt he'd signed so many of them. David, what are you up to in the next 24 hours?
Oh, geez. That's a really good question. I will try and wrap a few things up that we have going on internally in terms of content production. That's all I can say for now. And you will see the results a little bit later on.
Good stuff. Well, keep an eye on the website for all things aBlogtoWatch. Do get in touch with the show, leave us a review, leave us a star rating. Check out the show also on YouTube at the aBlogtoWatch YouTube channel. And we will speak to you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.